The silence in our Oak Creek home wasn't the peaceful kind you find in a library or a sleeping nursery. It was heavy, a dense, suffocating pressure that felt like it was pushing against my chest until I couldn't draw a full breath. I sat at the mahogany dining table, the one Chloe and I had picked out 3 years ago during a weekend trip to a boutique furniture maker in Galena. Back then, we'd laughed about how many family dinners we'd host here. Tonight, the only thing on the table was a cold plate of linguine and a bottle of wine that had been breathing for so long it had turned sour. I watched Chloe in the hallway mirror. She wasn't looking at me. She hadn't looked at me all day. She was busy adjusting the hem of a midnight blue cocktail dress that cost more than our monthly mortgage payment. Her movements were sharp, efficient, and entirely detached from the man sitting 10 feet away from her. "It's our anniversary, Chloe," I said. My voice sounded thin, like a ghost trying to haunt a house that had already been demolished. "I made reservations at the hearth, the same table where I asked you to marry me. I've had this on the calendar for 6 months." She didn't even flinch. She just zipped up her designer boots with a decisive click. "And like I told you 3 times today, Mark, the girls are heading into the city. Tiffany's sister is in from London, and we've got a VIP table at the Velvet Room. It's a networking thing as much as a night out. Don't be so suffocating." Suffocating? I stood up, the heavy chair scraping harshly against the hardwood floor. The sound echoed through the open concept living room. "It's 3 years, Chloe. It's 3 years of building a life together. You're telling me a girls' night matters more than the commitment we made?" She finally turned around, her eyes cold and glassy, a mask of indifference that made my blood run cold. "Honestly, tonight, yeah. Girls' night matters more than marriage right now. Now that marriage license, it's just a piece of paper, Mark. Paper means nothing to me. It doesn't own my time, and it certainly doesn't own me." She grabbed her clutch and walked out the door without a second glance. The scent of her expensive floral perfume lingered in the foyer like a mocking ghost. I stood there clutching the gold band on my finger, a piece of metal that suddenly felt like a lead weight pulling me into the floorboards. Before we go deeper into this story, take a second and hit that subscribe button. Give this video a like, and let us know where you're watching from. I'm curious to know how far these stories travel. Welcome to Family Secrets and Revenge. This is the beginning of the end. To understand how a man ends up sitting in a dark house on his 3rd anniversary while his wife is popping champagne with strangers in Chicago, you have to understand the foundation. I'm an architectural engineer. My entire life is built on the concept of structural integrity. I know that if the base is off by even a fraction of an inch, the whole tower will eventually lean, crack, and collapse. When I met Chloe at a gallery opening in the West Loop, I thought I'd found my cornerstone. She was a freelance marketing consultant, full of fire and ambition. She spoke about building a legacy, about partnership, about loyalty. We moved fast, maybe too fast. Within 18 months, we were standing in a gazebo in Lake Forest, exchanging vows that I actually believed in. I bought the house in Oak Creek, a quiet, upscale suburb, thinking I was providing a sanctuary for us. I worked 60-hour weeks at the firm, taking on high-rise projects that kept me in the office until dawn, all to ensure Chloe never had to worry about a bill. But while I was building the walls of our life, Chloe was quietly dismantling them from the inside. It started small, a girls' weekend in Miami that cost $5,000, a sudden need for a new wardrobe because her social brand required it. I didn't mind at first. I wanted her to be happy. But then the work meetings started happening at 11 p.m. on Tuesdays. The phone started being face down on the nightstand. And the laughter, that bright, genuine laughter she used to give me, was now reserved exclusively for the screen of her iPhone. By the time our 3rd anniversary rolled around, I was living with a stranger. Chloe had joined a circle of women in the city, mostly divorcees and influencers, who viewed marriage as a temporary financial arrangement rather than a partnership. They spent their days at high-end spas and their nights in the VIP sections of clubs that I was too boring to appreciate. I tried to bridge the gap. I suggested couples therapy. She called it manipulative. I suggested a quiet weekend in the Northwoods. She called it a prison sentence. Every attempt I made to strengthen the marriage was met with a new level of contempt. Sitting there that night, after she'd walked out, her words kept looping in my brain. Paper means nothing to me. As an engineer, that hit me harder than the infidelity I suspected. To me, paper is everything. Paper is where the blueprints live. Paper is the contract that ensures the steel is high grade and the concrete is poured correctly. If the paper means nothing, then the structure has no value. I didn't eat the linguine. I walked into my home office, locked the door, and turned on my computer. If Chloe wanted a life where paper meant nothing, I was going to show her exactly what happens when the legal papers that protected her lifestyle were withdrawn. I spent the next 4 hours compiling every bank statement, every credit card bill, and every suspicious business expense from the last 2 years. At 2:45 a.m., the front door finally opened. I was sitting in the living room, the lights off, and watching the headlights of a black SUV pull away from the curb outside. Chloe stumbled in, humming a song that was still thumping in her head. She was carrying her boots in one hand, her hair a mess, smelling of expensive vodka and the distinct, stale scent of a nightclub. She didn't notice me at first. She started heading for the stairs, probably planning to pass out and wake up at noon to start the cycle again. "Did Tiffany's sister have a good time?" I asked, my voice cutting through the dark like a blade. She jumped, startled. "Jesus, Mark, you're like a freaking creeper sitting in the dark. What is wrong with you?" "I was thinking about the paper," I said, staying perfectly still. "I was thinking about how much of it I've spent trying to make you happy, only to be told it's worthless." She groaned, throwing her head back. "Ugh, are we still doing this? I'm tired, I'm tipsy, and I don't have the energy for your husband of the year guilt trip. It was one night. Get over it." "It wasn't one night, Chloe. It was the last night." She laughed, a dry, mocking sound. "Whatever, Mark. Go to bed. You have blueprints to draw, or whatever it is you do to stay so boring." She walked upstairs, leaving me in the silence. She didn't know that while she was dancing with strangers, I had already sent an encrypted file to Elias Thorne. The next morning, I was at the office of Thorne and Associates on Wacker Drive before the sun had fully cleared the Chicago skyline. Elias Thorne was a man who didn't believe in amicable divorces. He believed in total structural demolition. He sat across from me, sipping black coffee, with his eyes scanning the prenuptial agreement I had insisted on 3 years ago. Back then, I'd done it as a formality to protect my family's engineering firm. Now it was my primary weapon. "You were meticulous with this, Mark," Elias said, his voice a low gravel. "The lifestyle and infidelity clauses are particularly sharp. If we can prove she's been using marital assets to fund third-party interests, or if there's a breach of the unity clause, she walks away with the clothes on her back in that nothing paper she's so fond of." "I don't just want a divorce, Elias," I said, leaning forward. "I want a forensic audit. Every penny she's moved into freelance marketing needs to be tracked. I suspect she's not just spending money. I think she's hiding it." Elias smiled. It was the smile of a shark that had just caught the scent of blood in the water. "If paper means nothing to her, she won't mind when we take the house, the car, and the lifestyle back. But we need proof, real proof, not just a hunch from a husband who's been left at the table." Before we continue, take a second and share your thoughts so far on this story below. I read every single one. If you were Mark sitting across from a lawyer like Elias, would you feel guilty, or would you feel like justice was finally coming? I went home that day and acted as if everything was normal. I bought her flowers. I apologized for being a drag. I watched the relief wash over Chloe's face, not because she loved me, but because she thought she had successfully trained me to accept her neglect. But while I was playing the part of the doting husband, a man named Miller was sitting in a gray sedan 3 blocks away. Miller was a private investigator Elias had on speed dial. Over the next week, my phone started receiving updates. Tuesday, 2 p.m., Chloe at a bistro in Lincoln Park. Not with Tiffany, with a man in a tailored suit. Thursday, 11:30 p.m., Chloe's Range Rover parked outside a high-end loft in River North. She doesn't leave until 4 a.m. Friday, 1 p.m., a bank transfer of $4,000 from our joint account to a consulting firm that Miller couldn't find a physical address for. The man in the suit was Julian. He wasn't a client. He was a lifestyle promoter, a guy who found wealthy, bored women and helped them spend their husband's money on investments that never materialized. I sat at dinner with Chloe that Friday night. She was talking about a new handbag. I looked at her and saw a crack that had finally reached the foundation. Living with the person you are actively investigating is a surreal experience. It's like walking through a building you know is rigged with explosives, but you have to keep commenting on the wallpaper. Every morning, I watch Chloe get ready, noting the provocative outfits for corporate boardrooms. Miller was digging deeper into Julian. It turned out Julian wasn't just a promoter. He lived in a luxury loft paid for by a rotating cast of women. He didn't have a job. He had a vacuum. He sucked up the excess cash of the suburban elite, promising them a life of modern freedom. He's smart, Miller told me. He never puts his name on anything. It's always the women. They sign the leases. They open the accounts. If the law comes knocking, a Julian is just a consultant who happened to be there for the party. I looked at the latest bank statement. Chloe had just moved another $6,000. I felt a strange sense of detachment. The pain was gone, replaced by the cold precision I used when calculating bridge loads. Chloe wasn't just breaking my heart. She was attempting to bankrupt my future. By the third week, Miller hit the jackpot. He tracked Chloe and Julian to a weekend retreat in Lake Geneva. She had told me she was going to a marketing seminar in Peoria. The photos Miller sent weren't just damning. They were a roadmap of her contempt. There they were, sitting on the deck of a rented yacht, Chloe laughing as she poured champagne over Julian's head. She looked younger, freer, and unaware that every bubble in that glass was being documented. But the real kicker was an intercepted document, a draft for a new business venture, C&J Lifestyle Management. The business plan specifically detailed using initial capital from a silent partner to lease a storefront in the Gold Coast. That silent partner was me. She was planning to use the divorce settlement she expected, the one she thought was guaranteed by our paper marriage, to fund a life with the man she was currently using to cheat on me. Before we go deeper, I would love to hear your point of view. Tell me what part hit you the hardest in my story and share your thoughts in the comments. Knowing that Chloe was planning to use Mark's own hard-earned money to start a new life with her lover, how would you react in that moment? I spent the next few days preparing for the demolition. I moved my personal inheritance, money my grandfather had left specifically for me, into a separate premarital trust that Elias Thorne had airtight legal locks on. I changed the beneficiary on my life insurance. I even started moving my most prized possessions, my grandfather's antique drafting tools, into a secure storage unit while Chloe was out networking. Chloe noticed the house felt a bit emptier, but she didn't care. She was too busy dreaming of the Gold Coast. "You seem quiet lately, Mark," she said one evening, barely looking up from her phone as she scrolled through Zillow commercial listings. "Just focused on a big project, Chloe," I said. "It's a teardown. We're removing an old unstable structure to make room for something better." "Sounds boring," she muttered. "But hey, as long as it keeps the bonuses coming, right? I've got some big things moving in my career too. I might need a significant investment soon." "I'm sure you'll get exactly what's coming to you," I replied. I could almost feel the weight of the manila envelope in my briefcase. It was time. I chose a Tuesday for the reckoning. Tuesday is a mundane day. It's not a day you expect your world to end. Chloe was in the kitchen, pouring wine and wearing a silk robe. I walked in, set my briefcase on the mahogany table, and sat down. "We need to talk about the paper, Chloe," I said. She groaned. "Again? Mark, I'm tired. Can't we just have one night where you don't act like an accountant?" "You said the marriage license meant nothing," I continued. "You were right. It doesn't own you, but it does protect you. Or it used to." I slid the manila envelope across the table. Erin hit her wine glass with a sharp clink. "What is this? Another budget?" she asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Open it." Chloe pulled the photos out first. Her face went gray. She saw herself on the yacht in Lake Geneva. She saw herself entering Julian's loft at 2 a.m. She saw the bank transfers highlighted in neon yellow. "Mark, this... Miller? Who is Miller?" she stammered. "This isn't what it looks like. I was helping Julian with a project. He's a client. A client you share a bed with? I asked. A client you're planning to open a Gold Coast boutique with using my money? I've seen the business plan, Chloe. I've seen the C&J draft. She slumped into the chair, the silk robe slipping. The mask of the independent woman had shattered. I was going to tell you. I just didn't know how to say that I wasn't happy. You were happy enough to spend $30,000 of our joint savings in 3 months, I said. You were happy enough to use our anniversary to mock the man who was at home waiting for you. You said paper means nothing, so I've taken you at your word. I pulled out the final document, the divorce filing. But it wasn't just a standard filing, it was an emergency injunctive relief petition. I've already frozen the joint accounts, I said. I've filed a suit for the return of the funds you funneled into that shell company. And since the lease on your Range Rover is under my firm's name, the repo man is actually in the driveway right now. As if on cue, the sound of a heavy truck idling echoed through the suburban street. Chloe ran to the window, her eyes wide with horror as she watched her SUV being hooked up to a tow bar. You can't do this, she screamed. I'm your wife. You're supposed to take care of me. I was taking care of a partner, I said. But according to you, that partner status was just a piece of paper. And since that paper means nothing to you, you don't have a husband anymore. You just have a very, very motivated plaintiff. Before we continue, take a second and share your thoughts so far on this story below. I read every single one. Seeing Chloe lose the car and the facade in an instant. Do you think Mark was too aggressive, or is this exactly how you handle a betrayal like this? The next 48 hours were chaos for Chloe. She tried to call Tiffany, she tried to call her influencer friends, but word travels fast, and once people heard fraud and investigation, they treated her like she was radioactive. She had no access to her consulting funds. Elias had secured a court order locking those accounts. She was stuck in a massive house she couldn't afford, with no car, and a legal team that was about to strip mine her life. She spent the first night screaming at me, throwing vases. I didn't react. I just recorded it for the conduct portion of our hearing. By the second night, she was pleading. Mark, please, she sobbed. I made a mistake. I was influenced by the wrong people. I love you. We can fix this. Paper does mean something. I was just being stupid. It's too late, Chloe, I said. You can't rebuild a foundation once you've poured salt into the concrete. It's over. By the end of the week, Chloe was gone. She couldn't handle the silence of the house or the way the neighbors looked at her. She moved in with Julian, or tried to. But Julian wasn't a fan of for better or for worse. He was a fan of for richer. When Chloe showed up with 3 suitcases and a legal summons, he didn't even open the door. He sent her a text saying he was traveling for work and that it would be best if they took some space. Chloe was left standing on a sidewalk in River North, realizing that the man she had destroyed her marriage for didn't even think she was worth a night on his couch once the paper was gone. If you were in Chloe's shoes, realizing that your lover had abandoned you the second things got real, what would be your next move? Share your thoughts in the comments. The discovery phase was a slow-motion car crash for Chloe. Elias Thorne looked for digital fingerprints. We subpoenaed server logs from Julian's firm and the cloud backups of Chloe's phone. There were voice memos of Chloe and Julian laughing about Mark's little engineering projects and how they were going to engineer a lifestyle out of my retirement fund. They had spreadsheets, blueprints for a life built on the rubble of mine. Seeing those files didn't make me angry anymore. It made me feel like I was reading an autopsy report. She didn't just break the contract, Mark, Elias said. She committed fraud. In the state of Illinois, if we can prove she was funneling marital assets to hide them, the judge can award unequal distribution. We don't just keep your money. We take her share of the equity to pay you back. I nodded. Do it. And I want her to see exactly what paper is worth when it's backed by the law. 2 weeks before court, I was working late. The high-rise project I was designing was finally taking shape. A tower built to withstand the harshest Chicago winters. It was a metaphor for my life. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered to the sound of muffled sobbing. Mark, please don't hang up. Chloe's voice was ragged. Julian kicked me out. I'm staying in a motel in Cicero. I have no money left. The lawyers took everything. I, I can't even afford a decent meal. That's unfortunate, Chloe, I said. Maybe you should try networking. I hear the VIP lounges have great appetizers. How can you be so cold? She wailed. We were a family. I promised to love the woman I thought you were, I replied. But that woman was a ghost. When the woman on the other end of this phone told me that paper means nothing. If the marriage license meant nothing, then my promise meant nothing. You're receiving the bill now. I hung up. The Cook County Courthouse is a place of cold stone. I walked in wearing a tailored charcoal suit. Chloe was already there, sitting on a wooden bench. She looked like a shadow. Her friends were gone. Julian was scouting his next victim. When the judge took the bench, the atmosphere shifted. Elias Thorne presented our evidence with the precision of a surgeon. He laid out the timeline of the girls' nights, the secret business plan, and the $45,000 in missing funds. Chloe's lawyer tried to play the emotional neglect card. Judge Henderson looked at the photos of Chloe on the yacht, then the bank transfers. Mrs. Sterling, the judge said, you claim you felt isolated, yet you had the presence of mind to coordinate complex financial fraud. You claim the marriage was just paper, yet you asked for the financial protections that only that paper provides. You cannot treat a marriage like a buffet where you only take the parts you like. Before we go deeper, I would love to hear your point of view. Tell me what part hit you the hardest in my story and share your thoughts in the comments. Hearing a judge call out the hypocrisy, does that feel like the justice Mark deserved? The ruling was a total victory. The judge ordered the sale of the Oak Creek house, with 80% of the proceeds going to me. Chloe was denied spousal maintenance. The judge even referred the fraud case to the state's attorney. Chloe sat frozen as the gavel struck. As I walked out, she chased after me. What am I supposed to do, Mark? I have nowhere to go. You have your freedom, Chloe, I said softly. You have your philosophy. You don't have to worry about worthless paper anymore. I walked to the elevators and didn't look back. I learned later that Chloe took a job waitressing at a diner. She's living with her mother now. My life is quiet now, but it's a good kind of quiet. I've started seeing someone new, a woman who is a structural engineer herself. We talk about integrity. Thank you for walking through this with me. If you've ever felt like your life is being dismantled by the person you love, remember you are the architect. If this story resonated with you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel, Family Secrets and Revenge. We bring you the most intense stories of betrayal and the strength it takes to move on. What were your overall thoughts on my journey? Did I go too far, or did the punishment fit the crime? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, take care of your heart and watch out for the secrets hiding in plain sight.